Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another MMA Breakdown podcast. And I was wondering, I keep hearing speculation that maybe Frank Mir might actually end up fighting Alistair Overeem. Would you guys want to see that fight? I think that's a winnable fight for Frank if he can get it to the ground. If he can't get it to the ground, he's going to be in for another ass whooping. How many times does Frank Mir get put up against a cage and beat up? I think Alistair Overeem, because how aggressive he is, he's just going to beat him up like he beat up Brock Lesnar. Kick him in the stomach or something, and Frank's going to drop. Frank doesn't have the ability, to my mind, to take an ass whooping like Travis Brown and still come back and fight and win a fight. But that's to be said. That's going to be an upcoming fight, supposedly, unless Frank Mir gets cut by the UFC for having 3 fights lost in a row. And he hasn't been putting on boring fights. I think the fight he fought against Big Country was probably his best fight he's had in a while. He fought against Josh Barnett, was a decent fight. He fought against Mirko Krokop, where he knocked him out, which that fight wasn't that eventful. But you look on the other hand, Alistair Overeem's been messing fools up. Almost dominated Travis Brown, brutalized him. I thought he was just going to win that fight easily. You seen what he did to Brock Lesnar, kicked him in the gut. Brock fell because Brock was coming off an injury and Brock was coming off a disease. So Brock Lesnar didn't have the ability. I think if Brock Lesnar was healthy, like when he first fought in the UFC, he would have mowed Alistair down. He would have been able to take him to the ground and done more damage. And then you had him fight he fought Bigfoot Silva and got knocked out. He fought Travis Brown and got knocked out. So, do you guys really want to see Frank Mir fight Alistair Overeem? I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sold on Alistair Overeem being one of the best fighters of all time. He is great. He's very aggressive, which I love a fighter that's very aggressive. But it seems like in his last 3 fights, I should say, he kind of gets so aggressive, he backs off a little bit. Like, he gets too aggressive, and he thinks the fight's going to be finished. And when it's not, he kind of pulls back a little bit, like he did against Bigfoot Silva, and seeing what Bigfoot did to him. And then you see what he did to Travis Brown. Messed Travis up, but Travis hung in there and came back, and what happened? He beat him. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I just think he was supposed to be this guy that's supposed to come to the UFC, become a champion, or fight for a title, and that's not to happen. So, I don't know, man. I just think he's a little bit overrated. He's not one of the best strikers in MMA, or the best striker in MMA, as they put it. But maybe a couple years ago he was a dominating force. But nowadays, I don't know, man. Will he be a champion in the UFC? I could see him being a champion in the UFC as long as he can not get knocked out and not get overly aggressive in his beating an opponent. And I really have a question for you guys. What do you think of Bellator? I've yet really to watch it. Not really big into watching it. I watch the UFC, of course, and I watch World Series of Fighting, which I think World Series of Fighting puts on great, exciting fights. So, let me know if you guys watch Bellator or you watch World Series of Fighting, which World Series of Fighting is doing it the right way. They're putting on free fights, but they only put on free fights like maybe once every couple months, like once a month, once every other month. So they're not putting on like massive, ridiculous fights like the UFC. I'm pretty sure I missed the last UFC event, which Ryan Bader fought at. And honestly, I didn't even know who fought in that Brazilian card. That's how much the UFC is putting out so much content as of late. I'm not even being able to keep up with what's going on. And I know I missed that card. And to me, missing that card wasn't a big thing because I didn't know who was fighting. The two guys that were in the main event, I could care less about. I don't see them doing that great. But that's just my opinion, man. Like I said, I missed a fight. I guess it was Wednesday. But what do you guys think of Bellator? What Bellator fighters do you want to see come to the UFC? What UFC champion do you guys see losing their title in the next year? Jose Aldo, Cain Velasquez, GSP, or John Jones? Right now, I could say GSP. I don't think Cain Velasquez is going to lose his title, and I really don't think John Jones is going to lose his title. I just don't, but for some reason, I'm seeing GSP losing his next title fight. So, post it in the comment section below. Who do you think is going to be the next UFC champion to lose their title? And how do you think it's going to be lost? By a 5-round decision, a brutal knockout, or a complete domination of a guy beating your ass for 5 rounds? Let me know in the comment section below. So apparently, guys, reading this, it says ratings for UFC Fight Night numbers down from previous weeks. It says running 3 events in 8 days did not benefit UFC ratings for Wednesday's night's fights in Brazil. Last 3 hours of the live event, headlining by 3 quick wins, Glover over Ryan Bader, only brought in 539,000 viewers on Fox Sports 1. Ratings for the prelim fights were not available at the thing. It says the number is down 35% from the 824,000 from the fight night on August 28th, when Carlos Condit versed Martin Kampmann. And the first UFC on FX got 1.3 million. So, my thing is, like I said, they're putting on too many fights, and a lot of people aren't knowing about these fights, and you got to be put on some massively great fights for people to watch. That's why I think a lot of people love World Series of Fighting, because I don't know what their ratings are on World Series of Fighting, but they put on great fights every couple months. When you put on like Monday, then next Wednesday, then the next Wednesday, then you have a pay-per-view in there, most people aren't remembering the fights, or you're putting on retardedly dumbed down fights that people don't care about. I know UFC has probably the most fighters on their roster, but let me know in the comments below. Do you think that's why they're losing a lot of ratings? Is not because the sport of MMA is losing traction. It's just the UFC thinks the more fights they put on, the better it is. And I think it was Luke Thomas from MMAfighting.com said it best. Less is more. And Dana White thinks more is more. What he means by less is more, like if you put on, like, let's say, instead of putting on like 12 events a year, you put on like 6 great super fights for the whole year, you would get massive ratings, because people would go, oh shit, you have Anderson Silva fighting John Jones in June, then you could say like Jose Aldo versus Showtime Pettis in October. People are going to tune in for those kind of fights, but you're not going to turn into like Glover versus Ryan Bader, because a lot of people don't know who Glover is, and a lot of people don't know who Ryan Bader is. So what do you guys think of the new Ultimate Fighter? I haven't seen it yet. Ultimate Fighter 18. I haven't seen it, so let me know in the comment section below if it is worth watching. It says, whenever the colors of the Ultimate Fighter begin to bleed together, a little bit of the UFC gets extremely overrated. Over the years, we've seen the shakeups where there was the live version where Kimbo Slice season, which produced the single most ratings of all time. And I think the reason why it was the most ratings of all time was Kimbo Slice, and everyone to see how beastly and how badass Kimbo would do in the sport of MMA, which you've seen didn't do that well. And the live version, I don't know, guys. I haven't really been into the Ultimate Fighter for a long time. The last time I really watched the Ultimate Fighter was whatever season, maybe Rampage, I think. Whatever season Rampage was on was the last time I really watched it. I'm not a really big fan of it for the simple fact they focused too much on the reality of these people partying and hanging out in the house than they actually do them fighting. It should be more about the fighters fighting than anything. But I know you gotta get ratings, you gotta show the people getting drunk and show the people partying, but I don't know, man, that's just my honest opinion. So, did you guys hear it says Dana White did not sound all too optimistic, requiring the future heavyweight Stefan Struve at 25 years old learned last month that he suffers from heart problems and is requiring surgery sometime in the near future. He's what White told the fans. Do you guys really think Stefan Struve will be back? He says, yeah, what he has is serious, and I honestly don't think he ever will fight again, White said. He's got a rip in his heart, he explained, and it's one of those freak things that happen to people, and I love the kid. The kid's got, no pun intended, but he's got unbelievable heart. He's tough as nails. He's the nicest guy in the world, and we're going to do everything in our power to help him. That's one thing I think the UFC is badass about. When their fighters are in need, or I would say Dana White, they pay for these dudes to get these surgeries, to get help, and that's a cool thing. While Stefan remains in good spirits, he's been forced to kind of like stop training, and I don't want to say this dude's going to retire, but if you look at it this way, even, I'll put it in the links below if you want to watch the thing. There's an interview with Dan Hardy where he has heart problems, and it was a podcast, and he's basically saying he's probably going to retire. It's a bad thing when a lot of these fighters have to retire from heart problems, but with that being said, that is today's MMA Breakdown podcast. Man, I think Stefan Struve is a beast. I mean, sometimes he just doesn't go for broke. He starts slow. But he was on like a 4 or 5 fight win streak or something. The dude's I still think he's a great fighter, but I'll see you guys in the next podcast. Remember to rate, even if you hate, comment, and subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But if you're watching it, or if you're just listening to the podcast, follow me, and follow me on my MMA channel on YouTube. And remember, guys, in the links below, follow my new MMA Underground Facebook page. It's popping off over there. Ask me any questions you want, and I'll sure to answer them, because I'm always on there. I'm active. I'm posting questions for you guys, videos, training videos, fight videos, whatever. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.